So far, all the examples that we've done have been how can I use all of this code locally on my own computer? But what's really powerful about what we've built here is that we can put all of this functionality up in the cloud, and we can automatically execute these trades daily or weekly or monthly or on whatever schedule we want. What's up, guys? It's Rhett. I've been wanting to film this video for a really long time, and it's been a lot of hard work getting up until this point, and I have not been very consistent on YouTube up until now, because I've been working on all the stuff that you're going to see in this video in the background, and so I'm really excited to share it with you guys today. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that about a year ago, I created my own Coinbase Advanced Trade Python wrapper, and that was a really cool experience, and it was really great to share that with you guys here on the channel. But then earlier this year, Coinbase actually changed their authentication methods, and if you've gone onto Coinbase recently, or if you're still using legacy API keys, you might have noticed that there are new features on Coinbase that are not available through your legacy API key or those old videos that I shared here on the channel. On top of that authentication change, Coinbase released an official Python SDK, making the old wrapper that I built kind of useless. You don't want to be using my wrapper that isn't being maintained all the time when you could just be using Coinbase's official wrapper. And if you're interested in that official wrapper, I made a video on it a couple weeks ago that I'll leave up in the cards and down in the description. So what I've been doing in the meantime is refactoring my entire wrapper to use Coinbase's official Python SDK, and then building out all of the tools and services that we're used to using here on the channel on top of that stable version of the official Coinbase Python SDK. So what I'm going to be sharing with you here in this video is, first of all, how to download and interact with my new Coinbase Advanced Trade Python wrapper. And then second of all, how to take the code that we've written here and put it up in an AWS cloud environment so that you can automate your purchases over time like we've done previously here on the channel. The difference this time being that we're built right on top of the new Coinbase Advanced Trade API, which is a stable platform going forward that Coinbase is going to build on top of and add all of their new features to. So go down below and smash the like button for crypto cloud computing, and let's level up your brains. All right, guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do is come to this GitHub page that I'll have linked down in the description. This page is basically the central repository for all of the changes that I've made going back and all of the changes that I'm going to be making in the future. So even if you're watching this video a year or 2 years into the future and a bunch of stuff has changed, this GitHub page will still be here. We'll just have newer code out in the releases tab over here on the right. And if you're already familiar with Python development, you can scroll down here into the README section and you can start to follow the setup instructions. We have the Python package installed via pip. So you can just run pip install Coinbase Advanced Trade Python, and you can do that in your terminal. And that should always be getting you the latest up-to-date release of this package. If you're not very familiar with programming, you can click on this code button up here and you can click on download zip. That's going to download a zip file for you that we can go ahead and open up here. And we'll get this file called Coinbase Advanced Trade Python main. Next, if you're new to development, my favorite way to interact with all of this code is using a tool called Cursor.sh. I did a video on it about a year ago. I think it's the easiest way for new people to get into programming, and I'll have that video linked up in the cards and down in the description. The reason that I like it so much is that it's directly integrated to ChatGPT and other large language models like Claude that allow you to ask questions and get direct feedback about your code base. So if you haven't downloaded Cursor already, I'll have a link to it down in the description. And for everyone else, we're going to take that zip file that we just downloaded and open it up in Cursor.sh or whatever our IDE of choice is. So let's go ahead here and we'll just click on open a folder. And then we'll navigate to that Coinbase Advanced Trade Python main that we had downloaded from GitHub. So first we'll see all of these files that are included with our project over here on the left. And then the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to right click here and create a new file called main.py. And this is where we're going to write our own custom script from scratch using a bunch of the sample code that's available on GitHub. So we'll see here when we head back to GitHub, after we've installed the package either via pip or by downloading the zip file, the first step that we need to take here is getting an API key and a secret so that our script can talk to our Coinbase account. So for this next step, let's go ahead and open up Coinbase. When you first open up Coinbase, it might look something like this, and you'll see this advanced toggle down here in the bottom left, and we're going to need to turn that on to enable Coinbase Advanced Trade. And if what you're seeing on your screen right now doesn't match what's on my screen right now because maybe Coinbase has changed the UI in the future, go ahead and head down to the description and I'll have a direct link to the page where you can edit your Coinbase API keys. For everyone else, let's go ahead and click on this API button over here on the left. And then here we'll see a list of our new Coinbase Developer Platform API keys, and then our old legacy keys that are not going to be around for much longer and are not getting access to some of the newer functionalities on Coinbase. So let's go ahead up here in the API keys section for the new Cloud API and click on Create API Key. I'll call this API key YouTube Wrapper Demo. And then I'll give this API key the ability to view my account and execute trades on my behalf. Because these API keys allow access to view, trade, and transfer funds on your Coinbase account, it's very important that you keep these API keys safe and you don't give them over to anyone else. I'll be showing all of my API keys in this video, but I'm going to be disabling and removing them when I'm done filming. I'm never going to ask for your API keys, and no one else should really ever ask for your API keys either. For this demo, we're not going to be covering any transfer functionality. So for this API key, I'm only going to give it the view and trade permissions. And this is a good practice to make sure that even if someone took this API key, there'd be no way for them to transfer funds out of my account. If you have multiple portfolios, which is something that we'll cover in a different video, you can select the portfolio here. I'm just going to leave this as default for now. And then I'm going to click on create and download the API key, and I'll complete my two-factor authentication. Now that I've done my two-factor authentication, Coinbase has downloaded a JSON version of my API key for me, which is really helpful. And then they've also showed me my API key name and private key right here on the screen. So I'm going to click copy for the API key and head back over to cursor. And I'm just going to make a little variable called API key and put my key right there. And then I'm going to head back to Coinbase, copy my private key, back over to cursor, API secret, and paste my secret right here. And then I'll head back over to Coinbase and I'll click on I've saved my key. And if you ever lose your key, you can very easily just re-follow those steps that we just did here and generate a new key. So now if we head back over to GitHub, we'll see that our API key and our API secret that we just downloaded from Coinbase match the style of what is here on GitHub. And so to get started talking to Coinbase, we can copy this method that we've written here under authentication. So I'll just go ahead and click copy right there, and then I'll head back over to cursor, and I'll just paste all of this code. And then obviously we can move our keys down here instead of these dummy keys. So we'll get rid of the dummy keys and we'll put in the real keys that we just got from Coinbase. So next, let's head back to GitHub and see what kind of information we can get using this API. You'll see that the first thing that we're able to do here is use any of the out-of-the-box functions of Coinbase's official Python SDK. So if you're interested in, for example, getting the product information of BTC USD, we can just copy this code here, paste it over here, save our file, and then click on play. If you just try to run this code and you didn't do the pip install steps, you're actually going to run into this error that I ran into here. And so you do actually have to come back here to GitHub, click on this pip install Coinbase Advanced Trade Python, copy that, throw it back in cursor sh, and then paste it here. And that's going to install all of the dependencies that you need to run this code. So now that we've done that pip install, if we click on play again, we should be getting information directly from Coinbase. If you run into a problem like I'm running into here after you press play, where it's saying no module named YAML or something else like that, no module named something, you can go ahead and run this command that I'll leave down in the description. It's pip install -r requirements txt, and that's going to make sure that you have all of the requirements no matter what. If for some reason your original pip install didn't get all of the requirements correctly the first time. So now that we have all of our requirements downloaded, we can go ahead and press play and get this product information for Bitcoin. And you'll see here that's exactly what happened. We have our product ID of Bitcoin USD, our current spot price of Bitcoin, the percentage change in the last 24 hours, the amount of volume traded in the last 24 hours, and a lot of other detail about the Bitcoin USDC market. And if we come up here and we change this to Ethereum USDC, we can save and just click on play again. And now we'll have even more information about the Ethereum market. And what's really cool is if we click on this toggle AI pane up here, we can talk directly to our code base. So we can click at and then main, and we can say, here is my function that gets the Ethereum price. Please help me get the Litecoin GBP price and print out the 24-hour volume in GBP. And then we can give it this output for what our output looks like so that it has an idea of how to parse that output, and then just click on enter. And so now it's rewritten our code from scratch to do exactly what we want it to do. I'll make this a little bigger, and then we can just click on this apply button right here, and it will have immediately made those changes. So then I'll go ahead and click on accept to take all of those changes, and then I'll click on play to see if it works. And once I click play right there, you can see that I got my 24-hour volume in GBP, and you can see exactly how we went about getting that Litecoin GBP price and all of that other relevant information that came through in this dictionary of Litecoin GBP. So if you're not very good at programming, all you have to do is take the sample code up from GitHub, plug it in here, talk to the code base, and then you should be good to go. Next, let's go ahead and clear all of this stuff and start to talk about how to make buy orders and sell orders using this library. So if we come back to GitHub, we can scroll down and come to using wrapper strategies, and we'll see that there are a lot of different ways that this library supports making limit orders. Of course, you can make a market order as well, but market orders have worse fees than limit orders, so I do recommend that you just place a limit order. You'll see here, if we run this code, we're placing a $10 buy order for BTC USDC, and that's going to get us as close to the spot price of this asset as possible. So it's almost like a market order, but it's really a limit order. It's just setting that limit really, really close to the spot price. The second option here is making a $10 buy order at a limit price that you specify. So in this example, we would be making a $10 buy order at the limit price of 10,000, which this Bitcoin order will probably never fill because 10,000 would be like a 90% drop in the current price. And then finally, we have the option here to say, place a $10 buy order for Bitcoin at a 10% discount from the current spot price of BTC USDC. So here we're just specifying a price multiplier of 0.9. So we're basically multiplying the current spot price by 0.9. So we're getting a 10% discount on the Bitcoin based on today's current right now price. So just to prove out this example, let's take this first limit order and copy this, and then we'll throw this into our code base here. And just to prove a point here, we can go over to our AI and we can give it access to this main file that we've been talking to. And we can say, I'm buying $10 of Bitcoin here. Please also buy $5 of Ethereum. And if we click enter, it's going to go ahead and rewrite some code for us here. And then all we have to do is click on this apply button. And now we have a $5 buy order for ETH USDC near the current spot price of ETH USDC. So let's go ahead and click on yes to save that code. And then we'll go ahead and save this file. Next, we'll head over to Coinbase just to prove to you that this works. We'll go ahead and click on orders over here on the left, and we'll see that I don't have any open orders currently. So let's go ahead back to cursor and just play this script. We'll see information down here that we successfully placed a limit buy for Bitcoin and for Ethereum for $10 and for $5. So if we head back over to Coinbase, we'll see our open limit orders for $5 in fees and $10 in fees for our Bitcoin. And again, because those limit orders are really close to the spot prices of Bitcoin and Ethereum, these orders should fill pretty quickly and get us the best fees possible. You'll see that when the order is open, we're getting quoted the maker fees, but when the order fills, we'll likely get the taker fees. So right now it's quoting us 12 cents for the fees, but when it fills, it will be giving us 6 cents for the fees. So now if we head back over to GitHub, there's a lot of other things you can do with this code base. You can obviously place sell orders in the same way that we went about placing buy orders. We can list all of the non-zero crypto balances that we have. This could be helpful for automating certain trading strategies. We can get values from the fear and greed index and update schedules for what different buys and sells we should make at different levels of the fear and greed index. And then down here, if you still are using the legacy API keys, you can get this legacy support while Coinbase still supports the legacy API keys. Just note that the changes that I'm making to this wrapper going forward are also not going to support any of the legacy API keys. And so I would really recommend that you switch over to the Coinbase Cloud keys as soon as possible. In my mind, there's really no reason not to make that switch right now. You're going to be getting access to new functionality, and also creating these Coinbase Cloud API keys was way easier than creating those legacy keys. So far, all the examples that we've done have been, how can I use all of this code locally on my own computer? But what's really powerful about what we've built here is that we can put all of this functionality up in the cloud, and we can automatically execute these trades daily or weekly or monthly or on whatever schedule we want. To get access to this code up in the cloud, all we need is a layer.zip so that AWS knows how to execute the same code that we just executed locally. And what I've done here is, over in this releases tab on the GitHub on the right side of the screen, the latest release is going to be available here. And that latest release, when you click on this link, it's going to have this pre-compiled layer.zip for you that's going to work up in AWS so that you can take whatever code you just wrote here in cursor, put that in the cloud, and start to automate it. So we'll go ahead and click on this layer.zip and it'll download to our computers. And if you want to see the code that I'm using to generate these layer.zips, I'll have it down in the description. You can also just open up the layer.zip and inspect what's inside of it and see that it's just the dependencies that have been specifically compiled so that we can run this code up in AWS. So next, let's go ahead over to console.aws.amazon.com, and we'll go ahead and log into our accounts. We'll sign in here and it should take us to the home page. Once we're in AWS here, we need to upload that layer.zip so that AWS can have access to it. So let's click on Lambda, and if you don't have Lambda here on the front, you can search for it up here in the top search bar. Once we're within Lambda, we'll see over here on the left side of the screen, there's something called layers, and then we can create a new layer. And you can call this layer Coinbase Advanced Trade Python, and I'll put demo after it, but you can just call it Coinbase Advanced Trade Python. And you can put a version here if you want. If we go back to GitHub, we'll see that this is version 0.2.4. So version 0.2.4. And what we'll see in a minute here is as I add more functionality to this GitHub, you'll be able to come back into AWS. And if you want to use that functionality, instead of creating a brand new layer, you can just create a new version of this same layer and you can tell it what the new version of the code is. So we're uploading from a zip file. We'll click on upload and we'll take this layer.zip that we just downloaded from GitHub. For compatible architectures and runtimes, this layer was specifically designated for x86-64. If you try to create a Lambda function for this layer.zip that is not x86-64 and is not Python 3.9, your code will not work in AWS because the cryptography binaries were specifically compiled for x86-64 and Python 3.9. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, you don't really need to know about it. But if you do have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or over on the Discord. Next, we'll just scroll down here and click on create. That took a few seconds there, but now we've successfully created our layer so that we can use all of that code that we just put in Cursor up in AWS. So next, let's go ahead and click back here on Lambda and create a new function. We'll see function over here on the left, and then we'll click on create function. We'll click on author from scratch here, and I'll name this buy Bitcoin and ETH on Coinbase. Remember that we need our runtime to be Python 3.9, and we need our architecture to be x86-64. We'll scroll down here and we'll click on create function. The first thing that we'll do here once we're in the function view is click on configuration, and we need to edit our configuration so that the timeout is at least 30 seconds. It really doesn't take more than 10 seconds to run any of this code, but 3 seconds is definitely not enough. So let's scroll down here and save our change to make this a 30-second timeout. Next, we'll head back over to the code tab and we'll scroll all the way down here to add our layers specifically to this function. So let's click on custom layers, and then we'll select this one that we just created here, Coinbase Advanced Trade Python Demo, and we'll select version 1 and then add that to our function. Next, we'll see here in this code, it says to do implement. All we need to do is go back over to Cursor, take all this code, copy it, come back into AWS and paste it right in here. And then we need to make sure that the formatting is correct. So it should look like this. We'll delete that to do implement. And basically your goal is to have all of the code that you just had over here in Cursor lined up in the exact same way within this def Lambda handler. So we'll see our API keys there. We'll see that we're importing the right thing. We'll see that we're connecting to Coinbase. We're making a $10 Bitcoin limit buy and a $5 Ethereum limit buy. Next, we'll see up here that we have not yet deployed our changes, so we need to click on deploy so that AWS has the latest version of our code. And then quickly, if we come back over here to Coinbase, we'll see that both of our orders that we placed the first time have already filled, and they did fill for the lower fees like I talked about earlier. And so now if we head back over to AWS and we click on test, and we just call this event name test, we'll click on save. And then we'll run this test for the first time. And this is again going to buy $10 of Bitcoin and $5 of Ethereum. So let's click on test here. It's taking a couple of seconds. But now we're seeing that we successfully placed our limit order for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. So now if we head back over to Coinbase, we'll see that we have 2 new open orders right on top of the 2 orders that just recently filled earlier in the filming of this video. So now we've developed code locally on our computers using AI. We've put that code up in the cloud. And now we need to automate that code that we've put up in the cloud so that it runs every day. So to automate our code, we'll head back over to AWS. We have our buy Bitcoin and ETH on Coinbase function that we know works. We just tested it. We saw the orders showing up in Coinbase. And now we're going to come up to search and we're going to look for Event Bridge. And we'll click on it here when it shows up in the search. Over here on the right-hand side of the screen, we'll see Event Bridge Schedule, and we'll click on Create Schedule. We'll call our schedule name Automate Coinbase Purchases. Automates BTC and ETH buys every day. We'll just give it a default group. We'll click on recurring schedule over here on the right. And you have the ability to give it a cron-based schedule, which is super customizable. You could turn this into literally whatever you want. The example here is 8 a.m. Pacific time on the first Monday of every month. Very, very granular. Most people won't need this level of granularity. Most people can just click over here on the right to rate-based schedule and say that I want to make this buy once every 24 hours or once every 1 day. And then here we'll see on rate-based scheduler that we can turn off the flexible time window so that hopefully these buys happen at about the same time every day. You can mess around with daylight savings time here. I'm not going to do it. I think if you're worried about daylight savings time, you're probably a professional trader, but most people are not going to need to worry about this. So you can go ahead and click on next here. And if you made a goofy name like I did, you will need to come back up here and make sure that there are no spaces in your name. So there's a valid name. We'll scroll down and click on next. So we've set up our schedule, we set up our function. Now we have to link them together. So what do we want to have happen every time our schedule hits? We want to invoke a Lambda function, and the Lambda function we want to invoke is buy BTC and ETH on Coinbase, the function that we just created, and then we'll click on next. On this last page here, there's some optional things that you can turn on and off. I recommend turning off the retry policy so that if something fails, it doesn't end up retrying your order like 100 times and then you end up with like, no money in your Coinbase account and it's all in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then if you scroll down to the bottom here, the rest of this should be good. You can go ahead and click on next. And then if you scroll down to the bottom here, you can click on create schedule. So now our schedule is being created and we can come back in here at any time. If you log into your AWS account, let's say we're on our home page, we can search for EventBridge up at the top, or we can just click on EventBridge over here. And then we can come over here to the left down to scheduler and click on schedules. And I have a bunch of schedules running here, but you'll probably only have the one that you just created. So you can go ahead and click on this automate Coinbase purchases schedule that you created, see the next time it's going to run, see how many times it's run, see the last modified date, see the created date, disable it if you want to, or delete it if you never want to use it again. You could also come up here to edit and change this if you didn't want to buy every day anymore. If you wanted to buy once a week or once a month or some other sort of schedule, you can always come in here and update that information on your own. And what's really cool is if you're using ChatGPT or something like that, you could even take screenshots of all the information here, send it to ChatGPT and say, what buttons do I click on the screen if I want to change my schedule from 1 day to 7 days? ChatGPT is pretty good at understanding pictures like this, and it's also got a pretty good understanding of AWS and any small troubleshooting issues that you might run into along the way. So hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. It is really exciting to me to finally have this project out there and in the open and for people to start using it. It probably doesn't seem like much because it's kind of gotten us like back to where we were before of like all of this functionality has been out there before, but we are now on a very stable platform, which is the Coinbase Advanced Trade API and their official Python SDK. Huge shout out to Coinbase for creating that official Python SDK and maintaining all of those out of the box functions so that we can focus on more, interesting and creative and fun things like limit orders that fill really quickly and fear and greed or AlphaSquared trading data or any indicators from Glassnode like the MVRV data being implemented on top of this base Coinbase functionality and allowing us to get some alpha by augmenting our dollar cost averaging over time and then, automating it like we have with AWS. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. I do still respond to all the comments. If it's a very technical kind of developer focused question, if you're running to any issues with anything we covered here in this video, it might be better for you to go ahead and join the Discord. We've got like 80 people from the channel already in the Discord, which is super cool. You can get notifications when new videos come up. You can get announcements when new code is released on the GitHub, and you can check out directly if you just click on one of these links. You can check out directly, first of all, the new layer.zip that's available, and then also what has changed in this new release of the code base. And then if you do have a more technical question, you can come over here to developers or come over here to crypto. And then hopefully me or one of the other developers in the Discord can help you solve your problem. Go like the video if you learned something and check out the blog or the Discord if you need any more help. I love you all. I'll see you next week.